All right, guys, welcome to the Bullion channel. Today, we're going to talk about metals markets and the stock market and the recent hit to the stock market and crypto market, how the media ignores things, and how all the money is fake. Booyakasha. Welcome, Colin. What's up?
Hello, it's good to be here. It's good to know that all the money is fake, and happy to talk about it.
Yeah. So I know, between I want to say like April 6th and today we're recording on like April 9th. Um, so yeah, it's interesting to see, I guess to start out with, how silver is obviously like more volatile than gold, but it still weathered it pretty well compared to a lot of crypto and a lot of stocks. Index funds did a little bit better, but still, dropped quite a bit. Gold seemed to hold like very well. Like, I mean, gold only dropped, I think, maximum like 2%. And the thing that's very interesting to me about it, the thing that's probably most interesting is that gold especially, and silver always rebounds. It's already starting to rebound. It's like $30.90 an ounce right now at time of recording. And it went down a little bit below 30. I suspect it's going to go up, and that's probably based on speculation and for industry use. But the thing that I find curious about it is how the legacy media coverage, but also the alternative media coverage, like on either X, formerly Twitter, whatever, or Reddit, or the other places seem to be ignoring like gold, which like weathered this like financial hit better than like pretty much any other big asset. I
So,
find
I
that
mean, if
very
anything,
interesting.
it should be like sort of a wake up call for like the American economy that you can't just like crash the whole world or whatever, and
Yeah.
people are gonna maybe start realizing they can, you know, I guess like, uh, over time, because of the way that like the globalist economy works,
Mm.
we'll likely start seeing more people slash entire nations that are making bigger plays and stuff, and
Mhm.
both get lucky like with Bitcoin or whatever and invest in the right thing over time.
Yeah.
Have manifested physical resources for export and stuff like that, and just become a world stage player because of their location or whatever down the line
Yeah,
when
yeah.
stuff like that changes. It's
So just to be clear, like you're talking about like, for example, like how South Africa produces like something like 85 to 90% of the world's palladium, like stuff like just
Sure,
geographically we have deposits of this rare material that you guys need.
sure.
Is
Yeah,
that
there's
kind of what you mean? Because you mentioned Bitcoin, so I
basically,
just want to
yes.
unpack what you said.
Yes, effectively. Um,
Okay.
you
So
know, um, that was kind of what I was getting at. Is like, I know it's not necessarily like a commonly traded commodity, quote unquote, or something, but apparently the U.S. just found like $500 billion worth of lithium or
yeah.
something in the ground. So like usable minerals and precious metals are not done being found either, too, right? So,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's not, and I feel like they're not being found at a rate that deflates them, but
Mhm.
they are, at least keeping up somewhat with the number of people on Earth, which prevents them from being owned by two people or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but it's still slow, and the reason they kind of didn't take the biggest hit of all time is because, uh, just the sheer amount of, I don't even know what to call it. Well, first of all, like actual gold, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
weight of the gold.
And a lot
Which-
of the gold is in that's why I think gold kind of is more stable in general. Now, I personally think that silver is extremely undervalued, but gold has a much larger market cap. It's got like a estimated, 20 trillion some dollar market capitalization. But the a big difference too between silver and gold is that gold or silver has way more industrial uses and gold is more monetary. It does have some industrial uses, but it's more of a monetary metal. And a
Sure.
lot of gold, like the people that are uh, around the world that are billionaires, like that really want to preserve their wealth. Like they have large amounts of gold, like big hedge funds have large amounts of gold. States like central banks, like supposedly in the U.S. Bullion Depository in Fort Knox, we have a bunch of gold. The Russian Federation has
Cool.
a gold reserve. China, the People's Republic of China has a gold reserve. So these central banks are holding a bunch of gold, or these nation states are holding a bunch of gold where they don't really hold a bunch of silver. Now they might secretly for military uses and other things, because that's kind of an elephant in the room, which is a good
Sure.
thing. Like, certain things on alternative media, like on Reddit and Twitter, the Silver Degen Club or silverwars.com, is kind of bringing that up and getting like shadow banned over it. Um, but yeah,
So I
anyway,
guess my biggest question would be like, okay, so if you look at the price of, let's see, 11. Okay, if you look at the price of Microsoft today, it was $390.49 a share.
yeah.
So if you had about 12 and a half, 13 troy ounces of gold, or sorry, of silver, do you think you could do as much with one share of Microsoft as you could with what's 31 times 13? 93. 190. No, yeah,
It's
193
it's
point
31
something.
31 times 13.
Yeah,
It's 403.
there
But
you go. Okay,
we're getting into the
403.
weeds, but
Okay, okay.
yeah, yeah. But anyway, so you're saying like can you
What
do
are you going to
more?
do with a share of Microsoft?
Well, that's the thing, and this is what I wanted to get into, and hopefully, we didn't get too in the weeds in the beginning, and people are still watching, but, um, dude, yeah, like that's the thing is, I think these stocks are so inflated because line go up, and even like
Oof.
I don't know when this is going to be posted, but at time of recording, it's like the evening of, April 9th. And the Secretary of the Treasury said some stuff about backing down on tariffs and the bond market, blah, blah, blah. And it seems like Bitcoin kind of recovered a bit. The index funds recovered, a lot of the stocks recovered, and it's like just because a guy said something, I
Yeah.
and I understand that like information can influence things, but I mean we're talking trillions and trillions and trillions worth of capital moving around off of like
Like multiple times throughout the day.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. And like going back to your point of like what can you do with shares in Microsoft? It's like, well, you can like buy and sell them. Like it's just like a speculative vehicle for the most part, where when you look at like what can you do with silver, what can you do with platinum? It's like, oh, there's like for silver, there's like thousands of uses. Oh, it's used in medicine. It's used in aerospace welding. It's used in solar panels. It's used in anything like smartphones, computers, anything electronic, basically.
Sure.
It's actual like it's actually real. It's like a tangible thing. And that kind of goes to cryptocurrency, like with Bitcoin. Like it's dude, there's a lag in transaction speed. So there's that.
Yeah.
The only real use is to buy drugs, but the bigger use for it really is to just waste energy. Like so
And
much
speculate.
electricity and computing power goes into keeping Bitcoin's network and the mining infrastructure, quote unquote mining, the cryptography infrastructure going. And really, there's no tangible benefit to society, yet there's, like $1.6 trillion in Bitcoin floating
Well,
around.
that's always kind of been like the crux of why I've sort of tried to at least hedge my bet with
Yeah.
stuff like silver and gold and whatever precious metals, because like at the end of the day, all of that fiat, that a bunch has been traded between like values of companies or precious metals into the
Yeah.
fiat, has disappeared into thin air,
Yeah. Yeah. If you look,
into like this literally intentionally obscure asset that has no actual use other than being traded for something else.
yeah, dude. And and maybe I will actually do some editing on this and put up a graph of the US's like M2, the US dollar's M2 money supply. And so people can see how trillions of dollars in capital just kind of disappeared from the US dollar, which is not good. And if you look at the like M3 money supply, that's going into even like crazier amounts where it's like 20,000 billion. It's measured in weird numbers, but I
Does
guess
he do that
the
on purpose?
uh, yeah, I mean that's just how it's measured. It's kind of
Okay.
odd, but
Oh,
or
I
I mean I
see.
guess you could measure it in different ways, but there's just kind of a standard, but that's neither here nor there. But I feel like the lack of media attention, and I've also with this at the end of March, there was a push on social media, and I don't know if you saw it, but for a Silver Squeeze 2.0, where it was trying to get everybody to buy silver on on the same day, like retail
Okay.
investors to all buy silver on the same day. And
Hmm.
all these Twitter accounts and Reddit accounts that I had never seen before suddenly came out of the weeds with a bunch of followers. And it honestly seemed to me like, and I used the hashtag just to get people to look at my stuff as because it was trending. But it seemed to me, and I know we're jumping around a bit, but this is we're talking about like the
It's
whole
okay.
economy. But and so I don't know if you've heard of that kind of happened, but it's it seems to me like it's an astroturfed thing with these accounts and or these individuals that are coming into the space, and it almost seemed like a plan to like, oh, let's get the retail investor to hand over a bunch of silver, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
a bunch of US dollars to dealers for silver literally one day before the price dropped by like $4 an ounce. Like that all seems very suspicious to me when I'm thinking like for a silver squeeze, it should be a long-term thing. And I've been advocating this for a long time, where it should be giving information to people. Like I floated the idea of handing out pamphlets explaining why silver and gold are the very good ones to have, and why people should have a little
Sure.
bit, and what
Yeah.
dollar cost averaging is, and what fractional reserve banking is, and just to try and educate people because it is a long-term thing. A bunch of retail investors buying one day. is not
Sure. That
is not
doesn't
going to
change
move the
anything
needle.
in the grand scheme of things, right?
No, no, it just hands a bunch of money over to a bunch of big bullion dealers. That's literally all it does.
Yeah,
Whereas an informational campaign, I think that's something good. But anyway, so I don't know if you heard of that, but I did. I don't know if you wanted to respond to that. I do have a question for you, but uh,
sure.
if you want to respond to that first, if
Um,
you have anything
I
else.
mean, no, I mean, I understand exactly what you're talking about. Like, in general, people just are completely uninformed about how really any trading works.
Yeah,
So may as well skip the stuff that isn't very real, and
yeah.
just go straight to something that you can hold in your hand. It's at least a better place to start for most people, I would say.
Yeah, and it's a very like the estimates vary, but a very small amount of people actually own physical precious metals. Like it's estimated, I've seen estimates, at least for the US population, where it's like between like 1.5% and 3.5% of the population that actually own like any silver, gold, platinum, or palladium bullion.
Sure.
Not counting jewelry because more people have that, but
Sure.
it's people just
That's a
don't.
smaller amount usually, at least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and with how the fundamentals behind it, it just blows my mind. I really think I guess, stacking community needs an long-term informational campaign, and for lack of better terms, like a propaganda campaign in just the literal use of the word to
I mean,
actually
like a
educate people. It's not the
sure.
best optics to straight up call it that, but that's what I think.
It's kind of what it is, right? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. But
Yeah.
I did have a,
And
a quick question for you because I know, you had mentioned in the last recording we did, that last episode, which I'll put in a card on the upper right corner of the screen, if you want to check that
there
out.
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right up there. Uh, but you had mentioned that you are bigger into gold than into silver, and I'm kind of curious what your rationale behind that is, and kind of
Generally.
what I guess, if you want to just talk rough percentages in dollar value, I suppose, of like, do you have like 15% in silver and the rest in gold, something
Uh
approximating that,
it's
or?
closer to it's closer to like 2-1 silver to gold.
Okay, so yeah, I'm
On
curious what your
bullion.
rationale for having more into gold than silver, because I'm kind of
Yeah.
the opposite. Like we're kind of
So
similar there, but I'm heavier into silver where you're
so
heavier into
we
gold.
bought, and I realize I said it the wrong way around, but 2-1, twice as much gold as silver,
Okay,
because uh we basically just want to hedge the bet. I'm trying to hedge my bet for
okay,
like 20, 30 years.
okay. So
Um,
you're just looking long term.
yeah, basically.
Okay.
And silver, there we like I definitely still got it.
Yeah, yeah,
But you know, I don't have a huge stack or whatever, but couple $1,000s or whatever
yeah.
total. So like the silver is more to buy and sell.
Hmm.
Um, I try to sell when I make something.
Yeah.
Um, but then the point of that isn't really to make money. I just try
Mhm.
to buy more silver the next time.
Yeah. So you're
And
buying
keep
more
it,
money.
yes, correct, back and forth.
Okay, so
Like
you're like kind of increasing your silver stack by
yeah,
like coin flipping or whatever. Okay.
effectively, I put like 500 or 600 bucks in to begin with,
Yeah.
and when I bought it, it was like 25 bucks or something.
Yeah.
And I sold a bunch when it got to like 30 or 31.
Okay.
and then I bought it again when it dipped to like 27, right? Stuff
Now,
like that.
yeah. Now, do you put any of that, I guess, capital gain into gold? Like,
Yes,
okay, so you're increasing both your silver and gold stock.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, so my kind of counter to that, which I agree, and obviously I have gold, I have platinum as well, which is a whole different discussion, which I promise I will make that platinum video. My people, my subscribers, I know you're so patient. I love you, but I'm doing a lot of research for it, and then I realized I did too much research probably. But anyway, my kind of counter to that is with our age where we're on the relatively younger side, silver every however long, like it happened with the coof shutdowns where it dropped down and then shot up. That it also happened in the
Yeah.
'08 recession where it dropped down and then like 2 years later shot up super high. And then same thing with the Hunt brothers back in 1979, 1980, where it shot up super high, where silver has these where like our lifespan is long enough or like should be like in ideal conditions if I don't get hit by a bus, where I will be able to number one, take advantage of those huge price swings upward in
Sure.
silver. And on top of that, I think all the fundamentals show that silver is extremely undervalued. Like the spot price is undervalued by quite a bit. And you can even see that in premiums. Like if you want to buy physical silver compared to the same, dollar value in gold, really,
Sure. Okay.
you're paying way higher premiums. So it's almost like the spot price and the actual price to buy the metals are decoupling because it really is becoming two different markets. You have the ETFs and the futures contracts and the COMEX and LBMA silver, and then you have the physical, like real silver that the average person can attain, and those
So I
two
guess
prices are
what I would
competing.
ask about that is like, why is it legal to speculate on like a basic what's basically a natural resource? Like, how does that work?
I
Is it all like margins?
You say why is it legal?
Yeah, like how does that even work?
Well,
Do they just know how much is
I mean,
available at any given moment?
well,
And
I mean the way that the commodities exchanges work is with kind of the with the COMEX and LBMA, they have like for silver, like or gold or any commodity, they have
sure,
eligible and registered. So
right, okay,
registered is gold that's
like
or silver that's like, okay, these specific bars are like ready for sale and delivery, even though they've been having liquidity issues recently, especially with gold. So who knows? And then they have eligible, which is the majority of it, which is kind of just not like allocated for physical delivery. It belongs to like institutions and ETFs, and it's kind of just sitting in a vault, assuming that
hmm
they're being truthful about the numbers. So it's kind of
sure.
like approved, but it's just kind of sitting there idle and be
You couldn't
kind
walk in there and buy some of it.
no, you could not. You would have to get it registered first to get
So it's
physical
really,
delivery.
does that mean that it's really just all the registered gold that's gold and silver and whatever platinum that's like actually what's tradable? And so
Yes.
they're all undervalued, basically?
Yeah, it seems like a scam to me. It seems fraudulent. And the fact
Well,
that
I mean, if
it's
you don't have
legal,
it, how can you sell it, right?
say that
Because
again.
that's if you don't have it, how can you sell it?
precisely, but they sell it in with futures contracts, which is like a speculation on the
that
future
they might have
price
it in the
of
future.
gold. Yes, yes, yes. It's and the fact that that's legal comes back to the same thing where it's like, well, why is it legal that like in the US and pretty much every other country, like the US, we have the Federal Reserve Bank, the Fed, that is for all intents and purposes, like a private institution. It's quasi-governmental, but it is private at the end of the day. Um,
Sure.
Making our fiat money, like why is that even legal? Because and to kind of pivot, I guess, into what we were talking about with I believe the stock market's inflated and that so much capital that should be going into actual commodities is being siphoned into crypto. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Like literally burning up into the air.
yes, yeah, like it's siphoning. Like if it were not for it being siphoned into crypto, like silver would probably be like $150 an ounce. I'm just spitballing here, but probably like $150 an ounce. Gold would probably be close to 10,000 an ounce because all of that money would be going into
Like
that.
big like mining equipment literally as opposed to
No, 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 no. Instead,
ASICs
no, no, just because there's mining stocks and stuff, but I'm talking just the physical asset. It would
that
be
of what
going,
exists currently.
yes, yes, it would be going into the physical
Okay,
asset
got it.
instead of crypto, which is literally nothing. It's like a place on a ledger, you know. And I kind of lost my train of thought there with that pivot. I
In
went on
line, I always felt like, I mean, I know it may be a little bit, yeah, we're getting towards
the
we're
crux.
getting
Yeah.
towards the end, but I would
Oh,
say
oh,
that
oh,
I've
that
always felt
real,
like buying
real
crypto
quick.
means
That sorry.
buying a space in buying a place in an eternal line, and you and you stand
Yeah.
there and wait until something
Well,
happens,
this is the
and
thing
eventually your
is
place in line becomes worthless
the
or
the
something.
fact that we are no longer on a gold standard or a bimetal standard with gold and silver, because it used to be like our money and most countries' money was gold and silver. Um, and that's no longer the case. That is what has allowed so much capital to flow into crypto now, but also so much capital to inflate the stock market where it's just line go up. And like, because like if you look at, for example, I'm just going to pick out of, I don't know, the top 30, like home,
Sure.
like Home Depot is worth it's got a market capitalization of over $350 billion. That
Ooh,
that's a lot of money,
it
or a lot of
is.
capital. But and I guess the lower you get, the more reasonable it is. I should use a better example, like Nvidia. Well, they make
That's a
products.
huge.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that's like 2 trillion.
no. Okay, let me use Alphabet. So that's like Google.
Okay.
That's almost a $2 trillion market cap. So that's more than like all of the above ground silver in the world. Do you really think that in a fair market that Google
it,
would be worth
no,
more than all of the silver in the world?
I don't think Google could exist without the
Well,
silver.
it could
Not
be.
all of it. They wouldn't need all of it, but like no, like obviously not, right? Because
No, yeah. I mean, I'm
Google's
just
a
talking.
product, not a means, right?
Yeah, yeah, and
And
I'm
that's
just
why
talking
silver
about.
gets so much value.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the financial markets, but that's a good point too.
Oh
Like
yeah,
for computers and
I
everything
wouldn't.
and servers to function, they need silver. But it
If
us
I had to pick one who would like outlast the other, I would pick silver every time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I guess getting to the crux of kind of I know we've been this is a huge topic that we're kind of talking about, but the crux of it is like the fact that our money is fiat. And like it's not just us, it's the US, it's Canada, it's the euro, it's the zloty, it's like the ruble, like it's like every currency pretty much is fiat. Um and because of that, that allows these stocks to be so overvalued that when you know stuff hits the fan in an economic sense and there's capital flight from stocks into safe haven assets, that sets us up for a
Sure.
huge like crash and potential depression. And we're already in a recession right now, even though somehow mainstream media and a lot of alternative media is like, oh, we might be heading into a recession. And it's like, dude, we've been in a recession for years. They just like, how do people not see this? And if our money, if we did have sound money, it wouldn't allow the conditions for these stocks to get this overvalued. Because if you look at stuff like with Wall Street bets and like all of that stuff back in the day, and I would have to look up
Oh
the
my, are you talking
current
about the
values, but
GameStop
like
squeeze?
yeah, GameStop and stuff like that, stuff that it, it allows for that. Like if our money was specie, hard currency, silver, gold, people
Hmm.
would not be trading in their silver and gold certificates that are redeemable for GameStop stock, or at least not to the
Right, sure,
extent
sure.
that
Yeah.
they were, and I think that is like what is setting and has since 1913, at least in the United States, been setting us up for this massive failure incoming, and that has been going on. And in the 2008 mortgage-backed securities, that whole crisis, the Fed did quantitative easing, money printer go burr. So that
Yeah.
led to a lot of inflation, and then the coof and all the shutdowns and the stim, all of that stuff led to even crazier inflation. Um, and they can't even, with how our monetary system functions, they can't they can't go into a deflationary type thing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, dude, it, this could be a 5 hour discussion,
Yeah,
technically.
yeah. Let's kind of I mean, based on what I said, like you get what I'm saying, right?
Of
Like it's
course.
just the
Of
conditions
course.
that are set up are just
Because you don't have to be accountable for the amount of money that you say you have.
yes, because all of these large banking institutions that are like quote unquote too big to fail, and I know based on the subscribers on this channel, like we're probably preaching to the choir here, but I think, I think really like people should be telling their loved ones, like, hey, this is what's going on. Like, I, I think informing people about this stuff is very important because I don't want to end up in a Great Depression 2.0, which seems to be coming down the pipeline as far as I can see, because it's always these large banking institutions that are able to do this stuff because we are no longer our money is fiat, like we're no longer backed by anything real. So they can just
Sure.
print money to bail out these institutions that make terrible, risky decisions to
On a
so,
regular
so that
basis.
so
Yeah.
that line can go up. It's just it's hard not to be an economic doomer about it, but I
Well,
think,
life is like a video game. So,
yeah,
I mean, dooming is at least cathartic in some way, but it doesn't solve anything. So, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that's why, at least, man, I'm going to go, when I get paid, I'm going to buy a big old bar of silver.
yeah.
Sounds like a good idea.
Well, that's the thing that at least gives me, and I guess prepping would be a whole other discussion, because that would be cool to do a talk at some point about that, because there's an economic aspect of it, mainly talk
Sure.
about that. But you know, at least having, a bunch of silver and gold and platinum, these real both money and in useful industrial metals, like they fit a very like perfect niche, I guess, where they're both money and like useful in real life.
Hmm.
And that gives me like I'm like okay with somewhat okay knowing that I have that. Because if I were like a lot of people I see on Reddit where, most of their net worth is in like crypto and like dollars,
Yeah.
or maybe some index funds, and that's probably the safest thing they have. Which
Sure.
you can see how volatile that can be. And with it being overinflated by how the system is set up, it's just, yeah,
Well, it just magnifies what some guy lies about on Twitter. And then all of a sudden, like, the
yeah. And
market fluctuates the total of like $4.5 trillion
oh,
in one
yeah,
day.
no, it's crazy. I mean, even just today on the April 9th at time of recording, who knows what will happen by the time this video is posted. But the Treasury Secretary was talking from, some headlines that I read, uh, talking about like, oh, kind of, easing on the tariffs and all of this stuff, and just him saying a couple things like kind of made what looked like a downward spiral in the stock and crypto markets into like a decent recovery, but like gold has held like strong. So I don't
The
know.
whole time.
It's very frustrating to me that of course the legacy media, but also a lot of alternative media is just ignoring it. And like I'm sure you've seen this if you go on a lot of places on Reddit, unless you're going to like r/, silver degen club, or r/ Wall Street Silver or something like that. If you go to like other, I guess finance or investing related subreddits, people seem to, like you had mentioned before, like kind of dismiss it out of hand, or
Yeah.
just it's just
Before you
not,
even really get going on it.
yeah, it's just not, I don't want to say hyped up because that's not the right word to use, but something approximating that. Like it's not well known in the public consciousness, where for some reason, even though silver and gold have, like a 5,000 year history as money, and Bitcoin has been around since what, like the
20, what is it, like
yeah, it
early
doesn't even
2010s?
matter. Like the past within the past 25 years or something.
Sure.
Less than that.
Yeah, less than that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just very I really think,
Doesn't make sense.
yeah, and I know we're kind of all over the place here because it is a huge discussion, but and this is all off the cuff. That's the whole point of
Yeah,
bull-
exactly.
the bullion banter. But I really think like for stackers still listening at this point, which is probably about 12% of you based on my YouTube analytics, you guys
Nice.
are
That's a good number.
hardcore. Um, and like I really think, and I know some people are like, well, I don't want to tell anybody that I stack, and it's like you don't really have to. You can say, you can lie, you can do whatever. You can
Yeah,
just tell them like,
yeah. They're not
yeah,
gonna like audit you. They're not gonna show up and be like,
yeah,
"All right, show me all of it."
yeah, especially if you're talking to trusted family members and stuff, like
Yeah,
if they're trusted, if you trust them and their family, like they're not gonna, the likelihood that they're gonna be malicious is very low.
dude, you can just
Um,
tell people that you've got boring ass
yeah,
stocks and
well, you can
ETFs.
just say to people like, "Hey, like silver and gold are like look like really good physical," and I should make that clear because the commodities exchanges do things that seem very fraudulent. I would call
Sure.
fraudulent or whatnot. But you
Like
can
oil futures.
yeah, futures in general for the most part seem just crazy that that's even a thing. But and then the whole fractional reserve system in the commodities exchange itself, let alone our currency being on a fractional reserve system. Um, But anyway, yeah. Point being, for guys that are and girl that are listening, like you can tell if you're worried about the secrecy and whatnot, you can just mention to family members. And I know some people have said like I've tried and I've given up because they won't listen, but it doesn't hurt to plant that seed. Like I I mean, because you can just not even say like, oh, I have any, but just like, oh, this seems like a really good idea. I'm thinking about doing it maybe, and that might plant the seed.
Sure.
Or at the very least, if they don't get into it, where that seed doesn't develop at some point, it'll at least increase the public consciousness. Because I do feel like
Sure.
there's like an anti-precious metals agenda that is being propped up by a lot of big banks, like big crypto holders and big stockholders in certain
Oh man,
index funds and
should we
stocks.
tell them? Should we tell them about how next time we're going to talk about how the goblins are holding Azeroth hostage?
Yeah, we are in the future, maybe with Mountain Bullion. If you guys are probably familiar, if you're longtime viewers, about talking about World of Warcraft gold and silver and what it's equal to in real life. But and yeah, the goblins.
It's pretty much 1 to 100 right now, which is
Yeah, it's
perfect
weird.
for the
Yeah,
discussion, which is great.
yeah, it's the fact that yeah,
Pretty
real
close.
world is matching a video game that's been around since what 2004, 2005 is kind of crazy, but like with the ratio. But it's I don't know, man. It's very and I know like we're going up against like big money. And like of course these big money people do have positions in gold and silver, but they're like
Sure.
they're suppressing the price and like shorting them and doing all these weird things to screw over the average like working person while pumping
I
crypto and
wouldn't
pumping
understand, like,
stocks.
you know what? Okay, I guess the biggest question I would have about that is like, what's the purpose of shorting physical commodities other than saying I don't believe in people?
To make dollars.
I mean, I
Because like
understand
when
that, like,
like those shorts are like
quite
they
literally,
because they're
right?
not unless it's like a huge like JP Morgan Chase or Deutsche Bank or something like that, like they're not taking physical delivery. Like they're just moving around all this paper silver and paper gold and paper platinum. So there's very little all things considered actual
When you're
commodity
saying,
moving around.
by the way, we're like bumping up against the time
45
right now.
minutes. Well, we
When
we
you say
we we
paper
go.
gold,
Sure.
when you say paper gold and paper silver and paper platinum, is that extremely similar to like sending a Venmo or whatever?
No, because at least sending a Venmo, you're kind of sending something like
I mean,
it's
kinda, right? But
it would take
sorta.
a while to explain a kind of how that works, but think of it this way, like when I say paper gold and paper silver and whatnot, I'm talking about that's like the ETFs and the futures contracts and stuff,
Okay.
which is um for the most part, if I'm not mistaken, is the eligible metals at the commodities exchange, which are kind of just, not owned
Hanging
by
out.
any one individual, really. That's an oversimplification, but that's stuff that's like not ready for physical delivery. They're just on paper, like changing ownership and moving around dollars essentially, where very
Sure,
little actual commodities are being moved at all.
sure. Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at is like nothing is actually physically changing hands at any point during any of
Yeah.
that,
And
basically.
recently there was I don't know whom or what institution or what people that were trying to take physical delivery of gold from like it was like a weird thing with the New York COMEX and the LBMA, the London Bullion Market Association. I think I got that acronym right. And there was like, like liquidity issues where they were like, hold on, we need like a while to give you that. And it's like, uh, don't you guys have all of this like sitting in a vault? And it's like, yeah, we do, but that's a huge oversimplification, but basically that's what happened. And like my
Well, they were like,
buddy,
it's tied up to be sold and then tied up to be bought back again 4 years after that or whatever, right?
say that again.
Like, you could just say a gram of gold could be tied up to be sold later
Y-
this year and then bought back again 4 years after that in contracts already,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I mean there,
Yeah, so they'd be like, well, we do own it, but it's about to, transfer or whatever, but they're not actually trading it back and forth, but they're like signing a bunch of, yeah, okay,
yeah, exactly, it's just a bunch of contracts. And then when there's any amount, because they're basically banking on the fact that everybody's not going to come all at once for physical delivery.
sure,
So yeah, like they are sitting in a pretty good position. They have it set up where the market is essentially rigged against the average person, because you need to have like a lot of money to even get physical delivery. Like you got to be like a billionaire type, or you got to be a big banking institution or hedge fund to
sure.
actually even get the physical delivery. Because even if you meet the minimum amounts, like they will still kind of like dick you around for like ever, unless you like really have the money and you can press them. And then they have liquidity issues when they supposedly have all this gold or
All the gold.
silver.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's very apparent to me that like, yeah, I don't think they actually have what they say they do. And
Which
that's,
just makes all of the, again, really, I know this is a callback, but it makes all of them undervalued. If the numbers are not what we
yeah.
think they are anymore and the bunch has been lost, just like, what anything else,
Hmm.
um, shit, dude. Oops.
No, it's
Well,
good. We can swear we're past the first like 5 minutes. We're
okay,
all
okay,
good.
okay.
But Yeah, it's just crazy, man. Like it really, when you really think about the system, and even not even necessarily thinking it, because it's like systems within systems. So there's like what we've been talking about with the commodities exchanges and the um, the stuff that's registered and the stuff that's eligible. Um, where they have way more eligible, which is not like ready for delivery than they do have registered. And even with the registered stuff, they have liquidity issues. But that's like a system inside of the larger system of fiat money, which is
Sure.
just, printer go burr, too big to fail, quantitative easing. Let's print, 20 trillion US dollars. Like it's just a kind of scary environment. Like, and
Yeah, it is. It is
you know,
because you
I
can't guarantee really much of anything in that environment. So um,
yeah, and
you
that environment,
can't fault people for being worried about it.
yeah, and that environment is what allows number one this fraudulent or what it's technically legal, but like it shouldn't be. Um, But that also allows all this excess like fake capital basically, or like in high, at least very best case scenario, just highly inflated capital. I mean, fiat literally means like not real or like fake, I believe. But to flow into Microsoft or Google or Facebook, like, Meta or whatever. And
Sure.
it, it's it's just crazy. Like that would not be possible if we were on sound money. Like people should have listened to Ron Paul back in the day.
In like 2008 or whatever.
Yeah, and prior to that, like it's
Yeah.
just nuts, dude. I really hearkening back to what I had mentioned earlier, like I really think we as stackers, we can keep it secret and just say like, hey, this looks like a good idea to get physical
Sure.
metals, blah blah blah.
Sure.
Or it depends how you want to do it. Like gonna make pamphlets and hand them out in the Metro Detroit area. Maybe go
Sure.
to Port
And, you
Huron
know,
or
some
various
people
places.
want to spread the good word. Other people want to
Yeah.
hunker down and do whatever. Either way, I would still encourage it. And technically, we're spreading the good word right now.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of this is probably preaching to the choir based on my audience. Um, but maybe some new people will stumble across this. And speaking of real quick, speaking of my audience and new people, at I just want to say this again for the probably 10% of you still listening. At 1,000 subscribers, I am doing a free silver giveaway. So make sure you're subscribed. And when it gets close to that, I will put out the details in a community post. Because I did a 100 subscriber silver giveaway. There's a 42 grand silver bar that I made. So for 1,000, I'm going to make a much bigger bar. It's going to be a good chunk of money. So make sure you're subscribed, like the video, all of that stuff. But I
Cool.
think we've talked about a good amount of stuff. I mean, we've been going for 50 some
Going for a little
minutes.
bit.
Yeah, we've been going a bit late, but I guess any kind of like I know this is such a huge topic. We probably should have before we started kind of zoomed in on something a bit more micro, but it's all good. It's all good. We good.
I think it's
Um,
hard to focus on one part of something that has so many layers going on, you
yeah,
know?
so many layers, so many moving parts, so much deception.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly. Even if you were to understand like the global economic policies, we still don't even know who's actually got what.
yes,
So the only thing that can be accounted for at the end of the day is when you lay my silver on the scale,
yeah.
basically.
And well, real
So,
quick before final thoughts, I did want to ask you because I know you're like, more into gold and then silver, and you don't have any platinum bullion, correct?
no, I do not.
So what is your opinion on platinum? Is it that you just haven't researched it enough, or
Oh, it is. I just don't. I haven't gotten to it yet, really.
okay,
We spent a decent amount of money on both silver and gold trying to get
yeah,
a little bit to get us started.
yeah,
Um, and we just didn't make it to that. It's the same thing as like, I mean, shit. There's a few palladiums, another one that's kind of interesting.
yeah,
We just didn't get there yet.
yeah, palladium, and I could be totally wrong. Obviously, none of this should be taken as financial advice. Obviously, don't get your financial advice off of YouTube videos. But that should go without saying, but I still put a disclaimer in the description of every video. But
Sure.
palladium is a weird one. And platinum's even weird because the platinum gold ratio historically, since platinum was able to be refined and started being used in catalytic converters and as a monetary asset, was historically higher than gold, but now it's lower than gold. So the ratio is a little weird with platinum, which I'm pretty bullish on platinum. It's been trading sideways for the past, eh, you know, couple years. Um,
Yeah.
and I think platinum's pretty undervalued, but that's a whole different discussion. But on palladium, I don't necessarily know if it's a good buy right now, in my opinion. I don't have any palladium right now because I bought a bunch of, well, not a bunch, but I bought a somewhat decent amount of palladium when I saw the price, continue to like go up and up and up in like, I don't know, probably mid 2017 or something. And then, at that time it was like 800, 900 an ounce. And then it went like crazy and went to 2000 something. I think intraday
Whoa.
trading at some point, it went to 3,300 or something, if I'm not mistaken. So I ended up selling the little bit of palladium I had when it went super high. Um, but like platinum and palladium, since they have a way lower market capitalization, and also than silver and gold, and also the vast majority are mined in South Africa or the Russian Federation, neither of which
Yeah.
are like stable. Um, that's a whole discussion. I will have a
That's
platinum
a whole
video
thing.
soon. So I was just curious on that. So I guess
Yeah.
before we hit like an hour of recording, because we've been going a bit far, I guess
Yeah.
closing thoughts on what we've talked about. I know it's like a huge thing.
I'll just say, as always, it's good to be able to hold my value in my hands
Yeah,
and to know what it's worth, basically.
no, I agree with that 100%.
It's a comforting feeling, you know.
And I guess my closing thoughts, aside from please share this vid or one of my other vids, like, subscribe, do all that good YouTube stuff. But aside from that, aside from my selfish YouTube stuff, um, echoing what Colin said, it's great to have your physical wealth in your hands. There's so many advantages to that, which I explained in plenty of other videos on this channel. Maybe I'll link one. Just look in the upper right hand. I'll link another video if you want to check that out. But I really think as stackers, we should be spreading the good word. Like I am going to make a bunch of pamphlets and hand them out in the Metro Detroit area for sure. Maybe Huron and maybe up in like Otsego County if I go up there. Uh,
Dude,
anytime soon.
can you imagine being like, "Excuse me, ma'am, do you have a minute to talk about silver's
Well,
price?"
yeah, yeah. I posted something about the pamphlets on Reddit and people were posting like comparing to like evangelists going door to door, but talking
Yeah.
about the good word of silver and gold. And it's like, yes, that is what we should be doing. Legitimately, I think that even if 1% of stackers did that, I think that that would positively affect the world. So, um, with that being said,
So
I
I'm
feel,
still gonna go buy a nice bar
yeah, yeah,
when I get paid. So
yeah,
it's
no,
as good a time as any.
yeah, because the economy is doing bad, especially here. We're kind of around where we live in Michigan,
Hmm.
Southeast Michigan. We're getting hit hard. I don't know about where you guys live that are listening. The probably 5% of you still listening at this point. But it's bad here. It's bad here. It's crazy bad. It's the worst I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, our economy is kind of underwater. We're upside down right now.
Yeah.
Um, Luckily, like people haven't all lost their jobs at like the car factories and shit, but
Yeah.
that's coming if
Well,
it
yeah,
continues
hours
like
are
it
being
is.
cut kind of across the board. Like my hours got cut at work and
Yeah,
multiple times there's been hour cuts. And yeah, that's a whole different discussion. But with that all being said, with the final words, unless you want to say anything else real quick.
that's it. That's all for me. Stay tuned for the World of Warcraft gold to silver value video.
Yes, yeah, we should set that up with Mountain Bullion. Mountain
Yep,
Bullion,
that sounds fun.
if you're listening to this, I know we've talked about it, but it is funny that the silver to gold ratio in World of Warcraft is the same as it is IRL right now. That's really funny. But anyway, so thank you anybody that stuck around this far. I know we went a bit longer than normal in this video, and that you know we're kind of all over the place, but it is such a big topic. But I got more coming down the pipeline for vids. I'm setting up other stuff. I'm gonna have some just me vids. That platinum video, I'm gonna actually get going soon. I just got a lot on my plate. But stay tuned, guys. Share with your friends, all of that, and look out for the eventual 1,000 subscriber giveaway. You got to be subscribed and all of that. And I'll post a video about how to enter. But I'm going to be giving away a lot more silver than I did for the 100 subscribers. So stay tuned for that as well. So, all right. Thank you, Colin, for being on. And
Hey, thanks for having me.
yeah, love to have you on again for the WoW thing.
Of course.
That would be kind of niche, but I'm curious on the overlap of the audiences. That'll be interesting.
We
But
could talk about market manipulation.
yeah, yeah. But thank you everybody that somehow stuck around to the end. Should YouTube should be suggesting some videos to you right now. But have a good one, everybody, and Salome.
Salome.